Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first presentation and presenter of the day at the SNN Network Summer Virtual Event. I'm very pleased to introduce Vered Caplan, the CEO of Orgenesis, publicly traded company. The symbol is ORGS on NASDAQ. Vered, the floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for coming to listen to the presentation. Wish it could be in person, but maybe next year. So I want to present Orgenesis today, and we are a publicly traded company, so please read carefully the forward-looking statements. And as I kind of tell you a little bit about the background of Orgenesis, I just want to say that our focus is really cell and gene therapy. Cell and gene therapies is one of the fastest growing spaces in biotech. It's one of the most exciting spaces in biotech. And I don't know, I think the slides here are going a bit slow, but I'll continue and we'll try to resolve this as we go along. And one of the things that we've tried to do is take this new space in biotech and make it available for everyone. We believe that cell and gene therapies are very much the future of healthcare. This is personalized medicine based on the most cutting-edge genetics, the most cutting-edge bioinformation, immuno-oncology, all of this converging together to bring new cures to patients, to make biotech something that can cure more and more diseases as this technology advances. So we've been working in this space for over a decade. We've really been pioneers because I think this whole space started developing for about the last 10 years. So we started very early on, believing it was a very niche area, but it has grown tremendously. As it has grown, we have a global footprint in US, Europe, Asia. We have more than 15 active sites and growing continuously. And as the years went by, we also uplisted. And making our efforts to make these therapies available, we've been through many pathways. First of all, licensing these therapies from hospitals, research centers, some of the leading academic institutes in the world. And we began with this activity of licensing these very innovative therapies from these hospitals. I think the first indications were very much focused on metabolic disease, diabetes. And as we started expanding and licensing more activities, we realized that the biggest problem in this industry was actually manufacturing these drugs. And we began our activity as a CDMO, a contract development and manufacturing organization, very quickly realizing that it's not only our issue trying to make these products and make them in a way that they can be available to patients, but it's actually a whole industry issue. And we went deeper and deeper into the supply chain, working on the viral vectors, working on different technologies that would allow us to make these drugs. As we advanced, we worked with the hospitals. At some point, we sold our subsidiary, MasterCell, which was providing services for various biotech companies such as Adaptamine, Iovance, CRISPR, some of the leading players in this field. And we sold our centralized facilities, and I will explain why we did that. And we sold it for quite a substantial sum together with our partners for $315 million. We had at the time about a revenue of $30 million. And we really focused on the setup of our point-of-care facilities and activity and platform, which is what we focus on today and what I want to explain to you. So as we've gone through these achievements, and as this industry is slowly maturing, it's become more and more obvious that the biggest issue is actually how to make these products in a very efficient manner and how to get them out. And what's so unique about these products is this is not a typical pharma drug or a biotech drug. These types of drugs are based on taking cells out of the patient's body, genetically modifying or otherwise reprogramming them. So it's really taking the information stored in the cell in its genes, in its other attributes, and reprogramming these cells so they can do the right thing. And if it's a disease or another clinical situation, very different than making a drug in a big factory or big facility and storing it on a shelf. This is the highlight of personalized medicine, working with your own cell, your own genetic material. So we take out the cells, we send them to a processing laboratory, we do the reprogramming, and then usually these cells need to be expanded so there's a sufficient amount of them, and then given back again to the patient. Very different, as I said, from other drugs. But also very efficient. And the drugs that have already reached the market have made a tremendous change in this field. And a good example is the CAR-Ts, where you take T cells from the patient, you manipulate them, you reprogram them, you send them back, and they are highly efficient at eradicating the cancer in the patient's body. So all of this is very exciting, but because of the uniqueness, because of the specialty of these therapies, they are growing very quickly. They're advancing. The market in this space is growing, I think, faster than anyone believes, certainly faster than what I believe. And as it grows, and as more and more of these therapies advance, they advance out of the research institutes, out of the hospitals. The same clinicians who are doing the bone marrow transplantation, who are doing the immune therapy, who are doing different advanced therapies, are now learning they can utilize this new science to cure drugs that could never be cured before. And we see this in the number of clinical trials has gone from 10 a decade ago to over 1,000. And more of these advance. And the clinical trials here are not the typical clinical trials you would see at a pharma or biotech drug. They're usually a much lower number of patients. It's very hard to do double-blinded control. And what really the focus is showing efficacy and safety quickly and getting these cures to patients. And as we go ahead and as we advance and have our own industry advance, one of the things we're seeing more and more is that the cost of these drugs is extremely high. And the reason this cost is so high is because we know they are manufactured in a different way. You can't sterilize these drugs because these are living drugs. They're made out of living cells. They have to be done in a very sterile, clean room environment. These are personalized drugs. You make a batch for each patient. Even if you're making larger batches, it's called allogeneic products, it's still not a shelf product. You're still collecting from patients, working in a clean room, and you have changing source material as you change the batches. So the challenge here is growing more and more, and when you go to the more sophisticated gene therapies, the cost is even higher with these genes, these genetic therapies being manufactured, again, inside cells. So more and more cures, more and more science, more and more great medicine getting out there, but the cost is extremely high. Even the drugs approved anywhere between $300,000 per patient to over $1.5 million. So this is what we are here to change. We believe that the reason that these drugs are so expensive is because they're trying to be made, they're trying to be manufactured in a typical biotech way. It's the way we used to do it in our centralized facilities, and we had a very high expense in manufacturing these drugs. And even though we had almost 40 clean rooms, we could supply for a very small number of patients. So it's a matter of capacity, availability. And as we were working more and more with the hospitals from which, and the research centers from which we license these therapies, we realized we need to develop a different way. And what we developed, not as a strategy, but just building up one layer at a time from our day-to-day work and trying to help the clinicians, the hospitals get these therapies to patients, is what we call our point-of-care platform. This is a decentralized way to supply these drugs. And what we do is we bring together three different pillars: the therapies, which we license from the hospitals; the technology, which is basically the automation technology, collaborating with different companies, working with our own engineers to make these products, not manually in a clean room, but with as much automation as possible in a box. So we reduce the cost. So the users, the technicians working on the production can stand outside of the clean area. And all of this combines to the network, to the hospitals. So to give an example, if we've licensed a therapy from one hospital for pancreatic cancer, we will license it in, we will work together with automation, we will make sure this product can be manufactured with automation in a closed unit, which we can place next to the hospital, and we work on the validation and the verification of the automation together with the therapy at the point of care in partnership with the hospital. This drastically reduces the cost because it reduces the cost of the clean room, it reduces the cost of logistics, of taking patient samples, transferring them back and forth to the central location. It reduces the cost of manual power sitting and working inside a clean room. And our goal is to reduce this cost, as these drugs don't cost $500,000 a patient, but much, much less, and make them available and affordable. And because the whole industry is facing this challenge, many hospitals, many research institutes are very interested in working with us. And this is how we have our pipeline. Our pipeline is based on therapies we've licensed in a collaboration mode, in a partnership mode, from hospitals, research institutes, and sometimes small biotech or larger biotech companies that have not managed to bridge that gap, to get over that really big challenge of taking a lab-based process done in a clean room and turning it into a product that can be industrialized and manufactured at a reasonable cost and with high safety. So this is our pipeline, and these are leading technologies licensed to some of the best institutes in the world. And what we do, what we are as the industrial partners, taking that therapy and bringing it together with the automation partners, with the automation we work with the process development. And remember, we have over a decade of experience working on such therapies and making this manufacturable and available on-site next to the hospital. And just to give you an example, because we have many of these therapies, some of them in immuno-oncology, you can see here metabolic, we even have antiviral medications. And as this industry advances to more and more areas, so is the need to resolve the issues for more and more clinical areas. And some examples, and I won't go too much in depth here, but these are really leading therapies in this space. We can see here the metabolically optimized T cells. This is for solid tumors where we take the T cells, the small amount of T cells accumulating against a solid tumor in a cancer. We take them out, we manipulate them, we expand them, we activate them, and then we send them back to the patient. Another therapy is an additional example is our CAR T. Again, this may be not more efficient than any other CD19 CAR T in the market, but our goal is to make it much cheaper, lower cost, and a higher availability, so it can be available at many sites in parallel. And as we are doing this more and more, we've really tried to bring together as many pieces of automation together. And what we do is we don't fit the therapy, we don't fit the biology into the automation. Rather, we take out different automation solutions and build them around the biology, around the therapy. And once we feel there's sufficient automation, we place these in a mobile unit. These are our OMPUs, Orgenesis Mobile Production Units and Labs. And the reason we try to do this is because in many cases, hospitals or research institutes who want to produce these products don't have the clean room capacity. And even if they do, they don't have the capability to expand. And even if they do, it takes a long time to expand clean rooms. It can take 2 years until they're built, they're validated, people are trained. OMPUs are a quick solution which we can place. And once it's validated, we can add more to that additional site. And it standardizes. So what we do, we work with the therapy, work on the processing, add in the quality control, combine it with automation, place in a mobile unit, and administer at the site, working in partnership with the hospital. And our goal is to actually validate this platform, to show we can work the same way, produce the same products in many sites all over the world, taking into account different regulatory requirements, taking into account different hospital sites, but making sure that the therapy itself is standardized. Today we work in many countries, as you can see, and we do this because we want to make sure we have validated networks globally. So if there's a need to do this in Spain, or if there's a need to do this in India or Korea or the US or Germany, we can supply a solution. We have validated units that can supply products that can work in development and after market approval. And as I mentioned before, we're very lucky to team up with some of the leading institutes in the world, whether it's UC Davis in California, Johns Hopkins on the East Coast, leading hospitals in Italy, in Spain, in Germany. Our goal is to make sure they're all harmonized. They're all working in the same standards, the same quality systems, the same regulatory requirements. And in order to do that, we have standardized training programs, we have automated processing systems, we have a global quality assurance system, which we implement and do a gap analysis. We have an OMPULs, Orgenesis mobile production units and labs, which I'll show a bit more in the next slide. And we have a unified supply chain and a centralized data management. And all of this ensures that no matter where we're working, we're making the same products. So these OMPULs are not just a pod or a clean room. They're actually something that allows you to do parallel processing. And even if the entire process is automated, at least sections of it are, you can already utilize the ability to manufacture, to produce in different enclosed locations. And you can see an example here in the picture. This is one of our OMPULs. It does have a manual high-grade clean room in it, because if you is need for a technician, is always available to go in. But it also has a space for isolated automation use. And the way we develop this, the way we do this, is actually we don't work on everything at the same time. This is an example of an OMPUL located at a hospital site. As you can see, it can be in the parking lot, it can be in the grass, it can be anywhere that's convenient, close by, easy to connect, and easy to connect to additional units or to QC units or whatever is needed on that site. But it's very standardized. And as we work on filling in this OMPUL, or as we say, OMPULizing a therapy, we don't do it all at the same time. We break down the process, and those processes are built by these things. Sometimes it's a different, you harvest, you modify, you expand, you formulate, you analyze. All of this has its different automation units, which we validate, sometimes in clean rooms, sometimes in closed systems. And while we're validating them, once all validation is combined, we combine them together. If we can find an off-the-shelf automation solution, even better. So we end up with different solutions for different therapies put into the isolation units, allowing automation, quick working. And we don't wait for clinical work until everything's automated. No, even if we've had some essential steps already automated, we start with the phase one, we validate the quality control, and we continue to work. Some of our automation units are even standalones, as you can see here. Some of them can be used as standalones, but we don't sell equipment. We provide products, and we utilize this automation in order to make the products we are working in on partnership, we are developing, or we are already producing for the hospitals. And for us, the most important thing is to maintain our quality assurance, to make sure no matter where we're working or how we're working, we're maintaining the same level of quality. Even when we worked as a subcontractor at MasterCell, we were known for our high quality and our really we see this as our moral background, because we want to make sure that no matter where we are supplying products, it's got the same level of quality, same level of training, and the patient is getting exactly the same level of product. And as you see, we continuously license. When we license these therapies, we actually license them in and we license them out. So we don't cover the clinical costs. We work together in partnership with distribution partners, or with hospitals directly. In the U.S., we do work directly with hospitals. In other regions, we work through local JV partners or distributors, which help implement these therapies. They cover the cost of the clinical trials in partnership with the hospitals, and in return, we supply these products in a cost-plus model. So it's been more or less a year and a half since we sold MicroCap and we moved to a decentralized kind of manufacturing. Last year, as we were advancing, we were just building up this business, and we're trying to build this in a sustainable manner. We're trying to build this in a way where we can add more therapy, but still sustain and make sure, with the help of the network, we are funding the clinical trials. And as you can see, our revenue from last year has advanced nicely. Most of our revenue at this point is from the initial stage of implementing new technologies, new therapies. And I think we've been very lucky to have great market acceptance. We've got a lot of enthusiasm from the hospitals and the research institutes which we work with. We work closely with the different partners, the JV partners we have. And there's a growing support from governments, from grant authorities, from different, I would say, industry participants that understand we all have to work together to resolve this issue of cost of products, bring the costs down, build up availability, and make these wonderful, wonderful products available to everyone. As a company, this is a little bit of who we are and what we do and how we kind of look out. We have enough cash to sustain our activities as we build up capacity, as we build up revenue, and we're very lucky to have a wonderful board that is built. My colleagues on the board are all very experienced entrepreneurs, very experienced in biotech industry, and are wonderful help to me to push this company forward and make sure we get our goals done. So thank you, everyone, and I'm very happy to hear if there's any questions.
Thank you, Vered. We have a couple of questions. First question is, what have been your biggest learnings since beginning the decentralized approach? Any surprises? Well, one of the things that actually surprised me, I initially thought that the hospitals and the research institutes that would be the most interested in working with us would be the ones that don't have the capability to produce themselves. Like I thought these would be the ones that don't have clean rooms and don't have ability to make this. And to my surprise, those that have the most advanced ones, the ones that have the know-how, the clean rooms, are the ones that understand most of all and are most interested because they see the issue of expandability of cost and are the ones most eager. So we've been lucky enough to work with such leading hospitals that we're actually learning a lot from one another. We're learning from the hospitals are learning from us, from one another. So that was a bit of a surprise for us because we were sure these type of hospitals would just want to continue on their own, and they don't. They understand the issues, they want to be involved, and they want to be part of our network.
Great, thank you. Next question. How do you manage a global organization with such a broad range of therapies?
So we actually are very targeted. Every JV partner, every region is really focused on its own task. And we have implementation teams. So let's say we have an immuno-oncology specific product that goes into clinical trial. Remember, we also have our internal CRO capabilities and our internal regulatory capabilities. So this is implemented in the sites in the different regions that are most fitted for that therapy and are interested in being involved in that clinical work. And then the local JV partner really pushes this therapy through the different stages. And what we make sure is that we have very good communications between the different partners and a centralized system that aligns everybody's interest and everybody's regulatory requirements and making sure whatever we're doing in one site is beneficial to other sites.
Thanks. And we have one last question. Congratulations on the strong point of care revenue growth. Can you give some insight on the scalability of the revenue model as clinical trials commence and ultimately move into commercialization?
So the way we see it, the centers we've set up now and are focused on pushing in the ampules, the systems, the therapies, running the clinical trials. Some of them even work with hospital exemptions, with different other regulatory mechanisms. And we do have some even approved products. And as we push this, our goal is to validate our platform, our ampules. And that means manufacturing in a clinically regulated manner. And Once we've done that, then we can expand to this hospital or to additional hospitals. So from what I know about this industry, many of these cell and gene therapies, and certainly those in our pipeline, have a very big potential in terms of patients. The limiting factor, and we've seen this again and again, the limiting factor is not the patient population, it's the capacity. Even very large pharma companies lately have said they will not go to certain regions. They can't supply enough product because it's a capacity issue. So we believe that once we have in a certain geographic region 1 or 2 hospitals validated with our platform, it will be quite simple to expand the capacity in those hospitals and expand to other hospitals. And by that time, it should not take, we don't have to wait for clinical validation. I'm sure for many of the products in our pipeline, we will have marketing partners, and we will remain the industrial partner. But as it stands, what we want to make sure we maintain the quality. So I believe the revenue, once we finish the validation stage, will be really built on our ability to scale up capacity.
Thank you so much. There are no further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the Orgenesis presentation. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect.